Today, we're diving into a really tricky subject that affects pretty much everyone online. How do you actually analyze and call out dangerous, hateful language without accidentally making it go viral? Let's get into it.
You've probably been there, right? You see some post or comment that's just awful, and your immediate instinct is to quote it and say, "Can you believe this?" But here's the thing. Does that actually stop the poison from spreading, or are we just giving it a bigger megaphone?
And that leads us straight into something we can call the repetition trap. It's this bizarre paradox where in our effort to condemn something, we accidentally end up promoting it. We embed it deeper into the conversation, making it part of the scenery.
Now, this isn't just a hunch, there's real psychology behind this. It's called the illusory truth effect. Basically, our brains have this funny little quirk. The more we see or hear something, anything, the more familiar it feels. And that familiarity starts to feel like truth, even if we consciously know it's garbage. Repetition itself can build a false sense of legitimacy.
So, this lays out the trap perfectly. On one side, you have your intention, which is totally valid. You want to shock people to wake them up to how bad a message is. But on the other side, you have this unintended consequence that's often way more powerful. Every share, every quote tweet, it can slowly chip away at the shock value until the message becomes normalized, just another opinion in the chaotic churn of online life.
So how in the world do we get out of this trap? Well, there's a really solid framework we can use, built on 4 guiding principles. And look, this isn't about being silent. It's about being smarter and way more strategic.
Okay, let's walk through this. First up, minimal quoting. The idea is to use just enough of the toxic language to make your point, and then immediately pivot to naming the tactic they're using, like dehumanization or scapegoating. Second, always verify your sources. Simple but crucial. Use credible news outlets or respected institutions. Then, and this is so important, you have to center the victim's perspective. Talk about the real-world harm, the fear and violence this language causes. And finally, open a window for action. Don't just point out the fire. Show people where the fire extinguishers are. Talk about counterspeech, reporting, or supporting targeted communities.
All right, with those principles in mind, let's get practical. Let's open up the toolkit and look at some specific methods you can use to break this stuff down without just repeating it.
One of the best tools in the kit is a technique called frame mapping. It sounds a little academic, but it's really just a straightforward way to pull a hateful statement apart and see how it works.
Here's the basic idea. You take the quote, but instead of just blasting it out there, you map it. You ask, what's the hidden metaphor here? Are they comparing people to vermin or a disease? Then, what's the implied logic? What's the hidden if-then statement they're trying to sneak into your brain? And finally, what's the potential consequence of that logic? What action does it lead to? See, this completely shifts the focus from their words to their dangerous playbook. But that's not all. You've also got euphemism translation. That's where you take a sanitized word and expose its violent reality. Then there's the norm check. This is where you ask, okay, which of our fundamental democratic values does this language attack? And finally, counter-speech practice. This is about coming up with responses that actually de-escalate instead of just throwing fuel on the fire.
So we have the principles, and we have the tools. The last piece of the puzzle is turning this into a habit. It's about training ourselves to ask the right questions when we see this kind of rhetoric.
First and foremost, think about emotion. Hateful rhetoric is almost never about logic. It's a direct assault on our feelings. So ask yourself, is this designed to make me afraid, to make me angry, to make me feel disgusted? Just identifying that emotional goal is a huge step toward disarming it.
Next, you have to be a detective and look for what's not there. Hate speech works by erasing context, by deleting history, by ignoring facts. What is being strategically left out of the frame to make this ugly picture seem believable?
And that brings us right back to where we started. This is the ultimate question, right? Knowing everything we've just discussed, how can I push back in a way that actually works? How do I use these tools to add context and challenge the narrative, all without making the original hate the star of the show?
So, why does all of this matter so much? Because, this isn't just about winning arguments online or being a better debater. This goes to the very core of what it takes to have a healthy public conversation.
Let's be really, really clear about this key takeaway. This kind of language is never just words or just an opinion. It is specifically designed to cause harm, and it absolutely has real-world, dangerous consequences for people and for society as a whole.
At the end of the day, a healthy democracy doesn't just happen on its own. It's not a spectator sport. It's something that all of us have to actively care for and protect. And defending our public spaces from this kind of manipulation is a huge part of that job. So, we'll leave you with this question to think about.
Now that you have these principles and tools, how are you going to use them? How will you choose to step in and help protect our public discourse for everyone? Thanks for tuning in.